What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Sheehan Show here on Sherdog.com, and today I am joined by the headliner of Bellator Dublin, Peter Queally, as he takes on former UFC champion Benson Henderson atop the very good card. I can't wait for it, to be honest, in Dublin here, only a couple of weeks out now. Peter, how are you? I know you're out getting your eye test and things today, getting prepared. This card, I don't know about you, but it's definitely snuck up on me anyway. It's not far away now. I'm looking forward to it. How are you feeling a few weeks out?
Yeah, it snuck up on myself, Sean, to be honest. It felt like they announced it about a million years ago, and now all of a sudden it's here. So, yeah, but I'm feeling good. Yeah, I was just getting my eye tests, part of my medicals and stuff done there earlier. So I can still see. I'll be there.
Perfect. I think that's needed anyway. Do you know what? If you couldn't see it, it'd be bad. But come here to you. The first thing I wanted to ask you, I saw you put up an Instagram post the other day about like your early days in MMA, and sleeping in your cousin's apartment and then sleeping in the car the odd time, and Artem taking you for dinner and all. Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit about that? Like, and obviously, coming to where you are now, top the card, fighting a former UFC champion, Benson Henderson, a massive name. Tell us a little bit about those early days and how tough it actually was to get to where you are right now.
Yeah, well, first of all, if you'd have told me in those days that I'd be fighting Benson in the Tree Arena and I'd probably be more popular than him and all this, I would have laughed at you, So I'm proud of myself. It's been a long journey and a good one. But yeah, it was really tough because I moved up to Dublin. I didn't move to Dublin. My first experience with SBG was I was training just for Conor on my own. I'd go up and spar with Conor just in the gym on our own. And then when I experienced how good he was, I was like, oh my God, I need to change gyms. I need to train here. So that was it then. So then I packed up my belongings and I moved up to Dublin. And I was lucky. My cousin, he's actually an actor on Fair City. He plays Dean on Fair City. If you watch this,
I never knew you guys were a famous family.
In Dublin. He lived in Cork Street, a little ratty apartment in Cork Street. So I used to stay there with him, like sleeping tops and tails in his bed with him. He was an MMA fan. He was like happy to help me and stuff. So I was really lucky. And that was the start of it when I moved up. But then when his girlfriend would stay over on nights, I'd get kicked out and I would just sleep outside the gym in my car. So, and I remember it was in the winter time, I used to have a big duvet in my little Renault Megane and I was tucked up inside it with pillows and all. But like, if you've ever slept in a car, Sean, you think you're going to be grand, but like, it's not good. You're always freezing and you can never stretch out. So you think when you actually lie down, you're like, oh, this is grand, this is comfy. You're kind of lying back in the seat, but then you wake up an hour later and you're just in bits. So that's how it used to be every night. And then I would just get up in the morning and I drive over. There was a little cafe beside the gym called the Farmhouse Cafe. And I'd go over there and get my breakfast and then go into the gym and train all day. And then hopefully, I'd be able to stay at Mike's house that night then and get a break from the car or whatever. So that was the early days. So it was hard going, but it paid off. And
the free dinners for Artem as well must have been good in the middle of
at the time that Artem used to work in Bank of America. And he was just after finishing his finance degree. So he had money. So he used to train during the daytime at the pro session because he was working. So he used to ask me, would I come in and spar him again at night time? So I wanted to spar him anyway, but it was good because he used to bring me for dinner afterwards and feed me then. So it was good.
What do you think, like, obviously your generation, obviously you were coming up with the likes of, Conor and Artem and all of that, and maybe your prime was obviously a little bit after, the likes of Pindred and Artem and all of them, and you were obviously headlining cards now, but you were still part of that generation that came up that had, the famous words that Conor had in the pot to piss in. I was looking at, there was an amateur fight on the other day, and there was one fighter that had, they were sponsored by Richie Smullen, and they had another sponsor, and the sponsors all over the place. I don't think them lads are sleeping in their cars or, being brought out to dinner. Maybe Richie's giving them some chicken nuggets and stuff like that, but
maybe that's the deal. Maybe he's getting fed chicken.
maybe that's it, yeah.
I would have liked that deal back then.
I'll tell you, I'll take that one now if anyone's throwing it. But what do you think the difference is? Like, do you think it's better or worse now for the fighters? Because that toughening definitely helped you to get where you are, and Artem and the other lads as well.
Yeah, those struggles don't seem to be there anymore in SPG, because number one, John has dorms now in the gym. So a lot of those guys, they sleep in the dorms, whereas that wasn't there at my time. But I don't regret it. It was, you either want this or you don't. And if you go to those lengths to get it, it can only stand to your kind of mentality and things and toughen you up. And, when the hard times are never that hard, when you're kind of going through hard times and hardship like that all the time. So it mentally conditions you for those big setbacks you're going to get in MMA when you take a big loss or whatever it is, and you see lads quitting and stopping fighting and stuff. But that never really happened to me. So maybe that was why. Maybe I was just kind of beaten down already. I didn't notice it as much.
I think it's funny to think about this kind of the second generation of Irish MMA, and you kind of go between the first and second, I suppose, a little bit. But there's been obviously we Conor in the first generation, so it's hard to overtake that or even get close to it. But you've had the massive fight against Patricky, beat him, obviously the title fight and this massive fight as well. And we've had some other big fights as well. Some Irish fighters have won Cage Warriors titles and FEN titles, and France has done great things, and Combachi and Palahan and other people as well. And obviously Richard Queally, the massive fight against MVP. But do you feel like there's still a little bit to prove maybe from the second generation of the Irish MMA? That big massive signature win kind of hasn't come yet. James has threatened a few times, you've threatened a few times, although the Patricky one, arguably you have the biggest out of all of them. Do you still think that's coming? And you obviously have a massive opportunity to do it right now.
Yeah, I agree with you. Now I would still consider myself kind of the first generation, but I'm just the only one that's left. That's why I kind of blur the lines, I think. So, but I still kind of am. When I started, I was in with Cahill, Chris Fields, Ash, Connor, Roddy was still fighting. It was they were my kind of stablemates when I started. So I think I'm still kind of there, but it's just I'm the only one left now, really. Connor's left as well. He's not as active anymore, but he's still there, obviously, as well. But yeah, you're right. But I think this could be the big win. Beating Benson, beating the former lightweight champion of the world in the UFC, and all he's accomplished. I think you're right. I do have the biggest kind of win currently outside of those guys. But this one would probably be bigger, even though Patricky is the champion now. This one somehow still feels bigger. So it's I'm really looking forward to it.
100%. For your career, sometimes, obviously probably aspiration coming up for you and a lot of guys was to go to the UFC, and a few years ago that changed an awful lot for especially SPG fighters, but for Irish fighters as well, with the opportunities of Bellator coming through. It's funny, up on the Severe MMA website we still have the draft. Peter Queally signs for the UFC, because you almost signed for the UFC that one time. Do you feel like...
Yeah, well, I technically did.
Yeah.
When Conor fought Nate the second time, I basically signed to fight Tim Means over there, but then the visa, they couldn't. You remember this? You probably remember.
Yeah. The draft is still there. I'll post it out.
Yeah. Oh man, it was that was so crazy. I was so that was such heartbreaking. Because I was literally, Audie rang me. He was like, "That's it, you're fighting Tim Means." He goes, "That's it, you're fighting him." And I was like, "Holy shit!" And then a few days went by of this happening, and then the call came in. No, you're not fighting him. That's it. No visa, no fight. Can't, because I was supposed to they were going to get me to fly to Canada or something and apply for a visa in Canada, because you have to do it outside of the US or something, and then come back. But then they basically decided that no, it's too risky, that the timelines of me getting it, basically the processing time of it was too close to the fight, and it was just safe for them to go with an American guy that had a visa, basically. So yeah, that was what happened there. So
was it kind of a blessing in disguise for you, the way things have gone in Bellator? Headlining cards, fighting for titles and everything like that. Because in the UFC, with all due respect, it's very tough in the UFC to get to the very top, to get the headlining cards. Well, with Bellator, you've had a great time. If I know you probably haven't reflected on it in that way, but if you are to reflect on it, is it a bit of a blessing in disguise?
Yeah, perhaps, for all those reasons you said there, and also that was welterweight at the time. I was lightweight starting off my career. I was like, oh fuck this, basically, and I started fighting welterweight, and I was doing very well at welterweight. But to be honest, I'm not stupid. I'm not a top welterweight. I wouldn't be able to compete with the top guys. They're too big. But at that time, I was fighting guys, that I was much better than skill-wise on the kind of regional scene. I was winning fights, but I think, at top level fighting a welterweight, I wouldn't do very well. So I probably would have went into that Tim Means fight who knows, maybe he won it, maybe not, maybe he got embarrassed in it, who knows, because of the size, because he's massive. I remember I met him at the weigh-ins day, and I was like, oh my God, how big he was. I couldn't believe it. I was so small beside him. And because obviously we kind of knew each other there, and he came up and he shook my hand or whatever. But he was so big. So perhaps a blessing in disguise for that reason as well, that you know, I had time then to kind of rediscover that I can make lightweight, and that's my natural weight class. So for that reason, it's definitely kind of a blessing in disguise too.
How big was that in lightweight? Because obviously before you were taking lots of fights in short notice and stuff. It was hard to get fights. You know, obviously with Bellator putting on, you know, we kind of know the 2 cards a year, and then maybe you get on a card somewhere else. How good has that been to have kind of that knowledge that you know you're going to get those constant fights, and you can fight down a lightweight, and you can prosper at that weight?
Yeah, it's really good because like before then, you remember, like when I used to be taking fights on quite short notice, like literally a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever. And that's kind of what you have to do, I think, at that stage of your career. And a lot of guys aren't willing to do that, and that's why you see some lads are a bit inactive. But I think you have to do that. And if you believe in your skill level, you should do that. Because you're either good enough or you're not. You know what I mean? There's no point in. Yeah, I've seen a few kind of shady, kind of bit of matchmaking there recently as well, lads fighting these really crappy guys, but no one prospers from this, because number one, no one cares that you beat an 0-5 guy or 4 guy or 6 guy or whatever it was, and also you don't evolve either, because you know the guy's shit, you don't train that hard, and also even when you do beat him, you don't gain any confidence because you know he was crap. So it's like, it's such a waste of time. I don't know why guys do this. Now, there's probably a smarter way to do it than how I did it, but you know, you have to kind of, it's a fine line, you know. It's so.
I've been talking a lot recently about like the amateur scene, obviously with the IMMAFs coming up, and you're doing coaching. I saw you know, in the corner of a few of the amateur guys and guys rising through the ranks. What, as you're kind of building them, and as you're like their head coach, what is the advice you give them? Because there's a very, you go to the IMMAFs and you have, you know, maybe the 3 fights in a week, and it's great and all, but maybe you don't have that experience of the Saturday night fight night where it's, you know, you're preparing them for pro. It's going to be like that as a pro. Where do you kind of, you know, draw the line between those 2 aspects of the amateur game, but also about going pro? Like, how many amateur fights do you think people should be having? Because, like, let's be honest, there's only a certain amount of a body a fighter can give up, and you don't want to be giving it all away as an amateur, like.
Yeah, so the first part of your question there, in terms of the IMMAF and all that kind of stuff, I always say the same thing to my lads, that you should do it, but just treat it like fun almost. Don't prepare to win it. Don't change your training to win this, because it's not real MMA, in my opinion. It's the length of the rounds and the rule set and the tournament format. Guys fight in a different way when you're doing that, and I don't think that style translates to pro. So I think it's a mistake for guys to really put all their eggs in one basket and try and prepare to win this tournament, in my opinion. But I think it's good to do it because you rack up so much experience. But you should just do it, go in, do your style, have fun, get the experience. If you win, you win. Great. If you lose, you lose. The experience is there. That's what I always, like Conor McCarthy is going to do it now in September. And that's what I've told him. You know, don't change your style, don't change your training, don't do anything, because he has a perfect style for pro. He's being groomed for pro, and and that's what he wants. So he shouldn't put all that on the back burner to win some tournament that's not going to really help his style in pro. You know, so that's kind of how I feel about that. So it's and what was the second part of the question then?
Just how long should you stay as an amateur before you go?
Oh yeah. Yeah, same thing then with Conor. I'm actually having that conversation with him now as well. He's had 7 fights now. And it's hard to know, because like you said, like he's had a few hard fights where they've been clattering and banging and they're, you know, and it's hard to know how long you should stay here. And because experience is great, but who knows, maybe you get an injury then, you break a hand or you do something. Because bloody hell, those amateur fights sometimes, like, because of the length of the rounds, they are fucking going hammer and tongs at each other sometimes. Like he had a fight there up in that IUR. Can't remember the chap's name now. He was one of Ben Davis's guys, if you remember him. He was from Galway. But my God, the 2 of them, Jesus Christ, it was like they're both hard punchers and they were going at it. Because the rounds promote that. It's like that bare knuckle when it's 2-minute rounds. It's just like, whirlwind. And I think the amateur is kind of the same sometimes. So I think you can get injuries there and stuff. But I think Conor is ready for pro now after 7 fights. So if that answers your question some bit, I think he's gained a lot of experience in 7 fights. He could easily go pro now. He spars a lot of pros, does very well. So it depends on the athlete, I guess, as well. But I think 5, 6, 7 fights is plenty. I wouldn't go over 10, to be honest. Like, he'll probably do this tournament now, and then talk of pro will happen, I think, to be honest. So that'll probably bring him up to about 10 fights. Yeah. So that's probably a good number,
Watching the Irish Championships this year, like, there were fights, like you said there, where it was just kind of hell for leather because of the short rounds. I think there were 3-minute rounds and that. But there was also a lot of, like, wrestling where a lad would just kind of push a guy against the cage. He might stay there for 2 minutes, and, like, kind of what experience you gain in that. It feels like, I was talking to someone about it the other day, that, like, you can gain kind of that experience in the gym almost, where you can. You're like, I don't know, is there a rule set you think that it could be changed a bit? Maybe 5-minute rounds, and I know it's tough when you're kind of learning and coming up, but if I just know, watching him, it was great. The Irish Championships, I think, were a whirlwind success, and they'll get better and better, but it feels like that wrestling thing in over 5 minutes is something, okay, you can get held down for 2 minutes, or like you against Patricky, you can land a few elbows from the bottom, which you obviously can't in the amateurs as well. Then you can get up, maybe win the next 3 minutes and the fight's over. It's very hard to win a fight in a minute. Do you think that's maybe something that needs to change? Obviously, coaching a lot of the amateurs coming up.
Yeah, I've given this some thought. Like, number one, the amateur, the IMMAF thing is totally tailored towards wrestlers and grapplers. So I always say to lads, don't be getting too disheartened if you're not winning this. It favours these kind of wrestler dudes, really, because they just have to come in, grab you, hold you, burn up 2 minutes of the clock, and they're probably going to win the round. Also, the shin pads, the gloves, no elbows, no knees to the head, the short rounds, all this favours grapplers. So that's why it's not really applicable for pro development, I don't think. But to answer your question, I think, now I don't know how you do it, but I think, longer, like, instead of 3-minute rounds, have an 8-minute round, like, maybe not 8 minutes, that's too long, but like even a 6-minute round, and whoever wins then wins, because 6 minutes is enough time to get tired, and then you won't be as willing to kind of hang on to these things and burn your arms out if the rest period isn't coming. Something like this, like maybe longer rounds somehow. That kind of what that does as well is it promotes more like skill based fighting. That's why that bare knuckle has 2-minute rounds, because they just want this. They don't want any technique. The shorter the rounds are, if you put me in with some guy off the street for 10 seconds in a fight, he'd probably do all right. He'd fight his life out for 10 seconds. Put me in there for 10 minutes with him, what's going to happen with him? Do you know what I mean? So I know that's an extreme example, but that's kind of the longer round. You see skill more in longer rounds. So I think that would be good for the amateurs. It teaches them to kind of manage their gas tank, manage their energy, use skills rather than just rushing in, grabbing guys, holding guys, fighting for their life, trying to get to the bell. Because you do see this a bit in the inexperienced fights where lads are just clinging on. And that's not their fault. They're inexperienced. They're trying to gain experience and they're panicking and things, but then that's fine. But I think a longer round would make you do that. It would make you think about your skills a lot more.
The last one in this, I just want to...
What do you think?
I agree with you. Yeah, I've had the exact same thing. Like, I think the longer rounds would help because it's going to promote lads being able to get back to their feet, and it's going to, like... I think the referee should be standing the fights up more as well. If you're not doing anything, I agree. Look, if you take someone down and you're hitting them with big shots and stuff, absolutely, spend 5 minutes there. I think in pro MMA as well, that should be more. But in the amateur side, I think it should be more about learning. I remember, John Kavanagh said it a few years ago. It's about I'll send my lads out on a Saturday night to have a fight in an amateur fight. Doesn't matter if they win or lose. It's about getting that experience, and I would 100% agree with that. And I feel like they're maybe not getting that experience when it's just a wrestle fest for 3 minutes or something like that. But it's it's evolving all the time, and I give the lads great credit what they've done in the Irish Amateur Association and as well with the IMMAFs as well. They're doing a great job, but that can obviously evolve kind of as we go. Come here, last thing on this. Go on.
They should do what it just reminded me of something. They should do what that did you see this AMC fight? The one I used to fight with Fight Nights. They're called AMC Fight Nights now. Have you seen what they're doing?
They're standing up after 50 seconds or something, or something like that. Your man got knocked clean out.
It's a 1 minute rule.
Oh yeah.
No matter what's happening, you get stood up after a minute.
That's the job. Let's go. There'll be a lot of lads happy with that.
Russia after I'm finished.
There'll be a lot of lads happy with that. Yeah. That'd be great.
Hitting a constant have that rule when I was there.
Oh God, Jesus. Yeah, there was plenty of him. Who's, if you had to pick out one guy, I remember, I think Ariel asked Brian Stan this a few years ago and he picked out Shemaev, so you have a lot to live up to here, but if you had to pick out one guy, you know, Conor McCarthy's coming through at your gym, but SPG or whatever, maybe a new pro coming through, if there's someone you think, this is the beast in the gym, this is the one that's, you know, getting on top of everyone else, this is the one that's going to be a star, is there any name that's sticking out to you as the person who could be that next?
That's a very easy one. That's Asela Jude in our gym.
Brilliant, yeah. A
complete monster. Just thank God I'll be retired when he's at the stage where, you know, I could fight him or something. He's an absolute animal. Very, very good striker. And he's only with us a few years, but he's already becoming just like good grappling. Not like amazing jiu-jitsu or whatever, but he's so difficult to take down and keep down, and just the work rate is just insane as well. You know, he's going to become whatever he wants to be, basically, as long as he can stay injury free. So that's an easy one. Nice. I've seen, obviously, he's fought Bellator a couple of times. Now it's stuck to pros there. You asked for a young pro. Okay. So stuck with that. Who's the amateur stuff? Connor? The amateur will be Connor. Okay. We'll get those two. We'll look back at it in a few years and we'll see. Come here. How do you reflect on the two Patricky fights? Because, you know, obviously, you know, you got the win in the first one and it felt like the win was kind of taken away from you a little bit, the way people reacted to it, and it was a fair win. You hit him with elbows and the doctor stopped the fight. That's a fair way to win a fight. Like, there's no problem with that. And obviously the second one didn't go your way. I thought it was very odd afterwards. You know, you're 1-1 and there was no talk of a rematch or anything like that. It was a massive event, a massive reaction. Just all felt a little bit weird to me. How did you kind of reflect on it afterwards, thinking back about it? Yeah, I agree with what you said there. I was just really disappointed because I know I can beat him. I made a mistake in that one. I kind of I put the foot on the gas a bit too soon. I think I got a bit too comfortable and I started going for that. My plan in that fight was to just bide my time, let him punch himself out a bit, and then just drown him, basically, just because I can do that to him. I know that's what I did to him in the last one. You know, he was fatiguing badly in the first one, and I totally believe I would have KO'd him stiff, to be honest. Not stiff, but I would have stopped him with strikes in the third round. I'm sure of it. He was getting really tired, you know, and I felt like that was the blueprint for this one as well. Just let him just keep the guard up and let him do what he wants, because he carries tremendous power and you have to be very careful with him. And I was doing that for the first round, and then I kind of felt like he's gone already. And even when he asked for that stoppage for the eye poke, I don't think there even was really much of an eye poke. And, you know, he's done this. He did this in our first fight as well. He tried to stop for an eye poke when I didn't poke him. I think he does this for a rest sometimes, to be honest. So when he did that, then I was like, he's tired. He's ready to go now. So I started like twitching and kind of putting the pressure on him and really coming after him. And I lunged in with a jab. The one thing I told myself that I wouldn't do. And then, bang, he's so bloody good and so powerful, and he just caught me so nice. So I was just really disappointed with how I, you know, let myself down with that. I felt like I made a mistake, and he totally capitalised on it. And good for him, you know, but I was so disappointed. But, yeah, you know, but, yeah, they did. I was disappointed with how they kind of didn't really, you know, play up the rematch again or whatever. I think that could have been done. But then again, there's a bit of a backlog there at lightweight. There's a lot of good guys there at lightweight too, so they deserve their shot as well. So, you know, you can't get too mad at these things. You just have to go off and lick your wounds and try win again and try come back. Yeah, 100%. And I suppose like the perfect guy to come back against is Benson Henderson. You know, arguably, if not the biggest name in Bellator, one of them will, you know, probably achieve more than, you know, most people in the world in MMA, and if you win that one, surely you'll be right back in that conversation again. How do you look forward to that fight? I spoke to Benson a few weeks ago and he was very complimentary of you as well, and, you know, obviously he's fought in Ireland before and you know, obviously seen your fight against Patricky. He was very complimentary about that as well. You know, how do you look forward to that fight? Like, Benson is, you know, he's not the type of guy who tires out, you know, he's the type of guy who keeps going all the time. It'll have to be a very different game plan for him versus Patricky, I suppose. And give us maybe an insight on how you look at him as a fighter. Yeah, like, well, you know, I'll say what I said at the start of the interview. You know, if you told me I'd be fighting Benson back when I was sleeping in my car, I would have just laughed. I would have laughed at you. It was like just such an absurd thought at the time. Do you know what I mean? So, I'm very proud of myself to be in this position fighting him, number one. I've always respected him, always been a fan of him. You can't not be that. Anyone who says they're not is just whatever. I don't know what's wrong with them. So it's a fight I'm really looking forward to, and I respect him. And again, I know what it's going to be. I know it's going to be very hard. This is not going to be easy, but I'm ready for hard. I like hard. So it's going to be good. Again, it's a very different style. I've been preparing for Patricky for 2 years nearly, doing this kind of and he's polar opposites to Patricky really in many ways. So there's a lot of adjusting in the style I'll have to bring to this fight. But with that said, I know I can beat him. I know I can beat him. He's blood and bones like every other man, and I can get him.
Well, last couple of things here. I appreciate the time very much, Peter. To be headlining again, it's massive, in that, the walkout song with the great Limerick voice coming out, it's absolutely fantastic to always hear. How much does that mean to you? Reflect on the first question I asked you again about coming from, sleeping in your car, training, thinking, maybe to get a first pro fight, to get to 10 fights, maybe to get to a big organisation, to now be headlining, but not just be headlining in your own home country, headlining with all those fans behind you. You saw, like, the commentary for the last walkout was just unbelievable, one of the best ever. How amazing is that for you to, not only have that in the past, but have that coming up here again in a few weeks?
It's like that Instagram post I put up that you mentioned. It's just, I just pinch myself sometimes when I think of where I am, and even the sponsors I have and things. It's so weird, Monster Energy and all this kind of, like, it's so crazy. Like, I would have never believed this if you'd have told me this. It's so like a dream, and I count myself very lucky every day. And that's what kind of motivates me to keep training hard and hold on to this now. It's not going to last forever. Not many people get it in the first place. And you need to treat this for what it is. And that's what I'm doing. But to answer your question about the walkout, and how cool is it being on top of a poster over Yoel Romero as well?
That's unbelievable. I can't wait to just see Yoel. Never mind being the poster. And it's going to be great.
Oh, man, it's so cool. Because when those fights were getting made, I wasn't sure I was going to be main event or not. They hadn't told me. They just said I was fighting Benson, but they said Yoel is on the card as well, and James.
Oh yeah, I remember you told us it was going to be James Gallagher versus Sergio Pettis that time, didn't you? Selling us one thing.
I didn't say that. You said that.
Yeah, it wasn't me, to be fair.
We put words in my mouth.
You hinted.
I didn't.
Yeah, I just ran with it. Yeah, it was all me, to be honest.
So with when those three fights were announced, I was like, well, fuck, any of those fights could be the main event. I was like, so who knows what this is going to be. And then I remember I was actually over doing that broadcast thing for the London show with BBC or whatever, and Mike rang me, Mike Hogan, and he was like, your main event. And I was like, fucking yes. I was like, this is so cool, because I knew what this means now. Like, I'm going to be on the top of the poster in front of all these great fighters, and that's amazing. It's so cool. And it makes me feel very good and very appreciated as well, that you're being thought of like that, yeah, you can, you're the main event. You are the most, whatever, you're the guy there to do the job for that. So it's just brilliant. I'm just so happy. It's amazing. I can't really say any more than that. 5-minute rounds again now as well, with the non-title fights in Bellator. So that's, I suppose, another part of it as well. It's, the suture. Yeah, true. Yeah.
It should be fun.
So yeah, but that I think suits me and Benson as well. Maybe that was brought into their thought process as well, that maybe they expect me and Benson to have a kind of a barn burner or something for over the 5 rounds or something. I think the two of us are suited. I actually prefer fighting 5 rounds, to be honest. I think the fight kind of is more natural over 5 rounds. You kind of just come in and fight. You've a lot of time, where sometimes the 3 rounds, you're like, you have to win the first round because you have to get money in the bank. And because if you don't, then you're kind of under pressure now to win the next 2 rounds. And you kind of fight differently, I think, when it's 3 rounds. Whereas 5 rounds, you just fight. You've got like 25 minutes is a very long time to be in a ring with another man fighting him. So it's like it's a natural kind of a thing then when it's that long.
Is it a bit easier to game plan too? Like, as you said, you get 1 round in, maybe take 1 punch, and your game plan is out the door because you need to win the next 2 and you have to win them. Is it a bit easier to game plan for 5 rounds in terms of what you want to do? If, like you said, against Patricky, you want a longer game plan. That's something it's harder to do over 3, I'd imagine.
Yeah, like that suited me when I fought Patricky the second time. That's why I was so confident. I was like, I just beat him over 3 rounds. What hope does he ever beat me over 5? Because like I'm the cardio guy and he's the guy that fades. But whatever, I sound like I'm kind of ragging on Patricky. He's amazing, whatever. He KO'd me or whatever. Good for him or whatever. But like in my mind, I was like, yeah, this is brilliant. It suits me. So it does. It kind of it definitely you can. It's not that you can game plan better. You can let your game plan unfold at a natural rate. You're not trying to force this game plan, if that makes sense. You kind of just have a game plan in mind and you can just let it unfold then. You have a lot of time. You know, the fight is a bit slower paced and it just kind of unfolds more naturally. And I think it makes for better fights, more ebbs and flows and kind of more exciting fights as well when they're 5 rounds too. So it was a great move, Bellator doing that. They should have done that a long time ago, I think, to be honest. You know, you just have to be careful what you put as the main event. You don't want to put, you know, 2 guys that will maybe tire or something as the main event. Then it can get a bit ugly when you see 2 heavyweights gassed after three rounds or whatever, and it's kind of, you know.
Yeah, or when it's 6 o'clock in the morning here in Ireland and I'm like praying for 3 rounds in. Anyway, Peter, I appreciate the time. I'll be seeing you again, I suppose, in a couple of weeks anyway, above in Dublin, and best luck in the fight against Benson Henderson. You know, he told me a few weeks ago he's planning on, because his last fight against Miles Jury wasn't the best fight in the world, and he said at the time he wants to make his next trip to Ireland an even better one, and you're saying the same thing, so I'm sure it'll be a fantastic fight, and I'm looking forward to seeing it. Thanks very much for the time today, Peter.
Okay, good stuff. Thanks, Sean.